Hey folks, it's Sam. I'm here on Friday, July 1st at about 1:22 p.m. Pacific time, talking about a very interesting and rare configuration in the sky, mainly tomorrow on Friday, but it's going to be sustained for quite a while because we have these planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, all in their own signs, which is really pretty amazing. Um, and then, of course, the moon is also in Cancer on Saturday. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about a concept called hemming, because with all these planets lined up this way, we also see a concept called hemming, which is where we see benefics and malefics joined and hemming, or what's called scissoring, Papakartari or Shubhakartari yoga. So we're going to talk about those principles today. So check it out. Very interesting and auspicious time right now to be doing some things, especially today and tomorrow with all these planets lined up this way. So again, before I get into that, I just want to have you, please like, share, and subscribe either on YouTube or on other social media channels. You see, I also, I have a pretty vibrant presence over there at Instagram, 13,500 followers. I update, I just went to the beach and did a post there, and cross post things on other social media platforms. So you can check me out there wherever you're seeing this. Of course, on Facebook as well. This is my Sam Jeppy, what they used to call fan pages. We see people saying stuff now. Quite a lot of people are part of this page, almost 28,000 here. And you can see there's a lot of, posting and updating on here. If you get your information on Facebook and then also on YouTube, almost 46,000 subscribers here. So there's a lot of, places to share and to interact. So please go ahead and do that. I hope you appreciate the time I put into these presentations. And I also right now want to let people know also about a group of classes. I just dropped a link in the comments where you can get 10 hours of really high impact Vedic astrology teachings that I've put together over the years. More than 10 hours, less than $10, where you can learn about all kinds of things: yoga, Ayurveda, Vedic astrology, and what's called Sankhya philosophy, which is the philosophy behind yoga and whatnot. The stuff that compelled me to write this book, right? And so again, this was from a workshop that I did where people paid about $300. So you get, basically the first day's recording. Then you also get a course on quantum Vedic astrology and neuroscience, where I talk about literally quantum physics, the double slit experiment, quantum entanglement, the casino effect, all these interesting things, and neuroscience, things like the triune brain, the three gunas, all kinds of interesting models where you can take Vedic astrology off of the bookshelf and sort of blow the mothballs out of it and apply it to the life you're living and your brain and your cognition and all of these other things. And then I also have a class called the Spiritual Astrology Master Course. This is from a larger course. So again, you can get access to that at only $10 for 10 hours. So click that link and check that out as well. So today I am going to talk about this very interesting configurations that we see in the sky. And again, we have Saturn in its own sign of Aquarius. We have Jupiter in its own sign of Pisces. And of course, what that means is it's bringing out the highest potential in these areas where we're very dialed in and very aware of these things. And of course, I'm going to talk about them. And again, Jupiter in Pisces, very much this Jupiterian Piscean nature is fully developed now, like in full bloom. Mars in Aries, very much Mars, Aries principles are very empowered. Venus in Taurus, these Venusian and Taurian concepts are very highly developed right now. Mercury in Gemini, that happens tomorrow. That happens on the 2nd. Actually later on July 1st, because right now, today, Mercury is finishing its transit through Taurus as I speak here on July 1st. By tomorrow, Mercury will be in Gemini, excuse me, which really develops all those mercurial qualities of speech, communication, and the Gemini, which is expressed through Gemini with language and interaction and using our intelligence and our discrimination. And the moon is in Cancer, which really fully embodies those qualities of the heart, not just our emotional triggering, but also a deeper devotional state and something where there's greater empathy for those beyond ourselves, where it's not just about our emotional, habits and triggering and confirmation bias, where we just confirm what we already feel and look to confirm it everywhere. No, when the moon is in Cancer, there's a potential for a deeper empathy and compassion beyond what we already feel, right? So again, all of these are fully developed. So just to go back again, Saturn in Aquarius right now, again, Aquarius is really about our social contract with each other in a mundane sense. It's where we sense and we realize that we're all part of a community. We're all part of a global community. It's not just me as an individual, again, which is opposite Leo. It's not just the glory of me as a powerful individual and what I want and what I think is right and the kingdom I think is here for me, but it's actually the kingdom and the citizens in the kingdom and their voice and the desire and the capacity to want to respect others' rights, not just our own, to have a larger vision of things and the world the way we want it to be for all of us, hopefully, not just for me. Again, like I said, because what I think is right is maybe different than what I think is best for everyone. I might think, for example, I'll give you an example. I'm a vegetarian, right? I don't eat meat. But I don't necessarily want to impose that on everybody and make eating meat against the law. Although I might think that would be best for the world. Maybe I would think that's best for the world, but I don't want to impose it on other people and force them to do it because of my values. And I don't think it would be the best thing. I don't think it would be best overall because of all of the turmoil it would create. Again, so Aquarius is where we're looking out for that larger vision, that larger picture. And even if I think something is right, I might realize, and I should realize, that imposing it on others and forcing it on others is not going to be what's best for all of us. I would hope that people might come to this realization on their own. For example, let's say like the eating meat, rather than pass a law from the government, again, because the government is Leo, centralized power, that says, okay, I now decree that eating meat is wrong for everybody and it's illegal. And if you're caught eating meat, you're going to get thrown in jail or whatever it might be. Again, even if I might agree with that policy, I don't agree that it's the right thing to do for everyone. So again, this is the sort of trade-off between Leo and Aquarius. And often, these are the questions we have to ask. Even if I agree with it, is it the right thing for everybody, for culture? What's going to be the ramifications if something happens, even that I agree with, that I think is right, but it now gets forced upon everybody? Is that the right thing? So Aquarius gives us an awareness of these things. This is why we're seeing so many of these social issues now blowing up. Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius. It's about to go back into Capricorn. But right now we're seeing these Aquarian themes, this culture and these choices that we have to make as a culture really showing up. We've definitely seen it here in America with the courts the last couple weeks. And I'm going to talk about the courts in a second. But that's the Aquarian principle and why we're seeing it so developed and needing to question these things and work through them. Jupiter in Pisces, again, Jupiter is about things like justice and teachings and higher wisdom and the vision and where things are going philosophically. So, for example, it's like, for example, where we're going as a species, where we're going as a country, where we're going as a person, where we're going with our spirituality, our religion, our cultural, what do we stand for kind of thing. Again, I'm saying cultural, but it's also personal. All these things are also personal. I use some cultural references because it's the common world that we see, But Jupiter also, of course, in this context, refers to courts, literally. Like when someone asks me to see what's going to happen with, going to court, for example, I look at Jupiter, right? Because he's related to the courts. So Jupiter in Pisces, we're seeing a lot of court decisions that are impacting us all, right? We're seeing it for good or ill, whatever your position is. This is why it's very developed right now. Is our sense of meaning and purpose. Now, again, in your life as well, this is why I'm also talking about courses right now. It's why I'm talking about classes and courses right now. I'll drop the link again, because now is the time for you to really be looking into what inspires you. And that includes maybe doing things like actually studying and actually really learning about this stuff. Because I know when Jupiter is in Pisces, people are really going to be interested in that. They're really looking to understand things in a deeper level. So I put together things like incredibly powerful teachings that you get access to immediately and have access to for the rest of your life. For only $10, you can get all that. And so this is a way, because I get asked all the time, where do you recommend we start? Well, I recommend you start with something like that. It's a pretty good deal. One of the best you'll find. That's also Jupiter. So again, that's you maybe individually. What's the meaning of your life? Well, we also see what's the meaning of our culture or our country or world, in fact. Mars in Aries shows now we're ready for fight. Now we're ready for a fight. Mars is literally the things we're willing to fight for and why we're willing to fight for them and how much of the fight how much fight we're going to bring to something. We're always looking to fight to change certain things, but are we really fighting to change the things that need to be changed? Or are we just fighting to win some egoistic battle, right? So when Mars is in Aries, there's a lot of potential for fighting, but it's also fighting the good fight, because we're often drawn into a fight and it's like, okay, now I wasn't in the fight before, but now I am. Now a time comes when Mars is in Aries where we realize, okay, we've tried to be nice, we've tried to, pacify things, but now we need to fight, because Mars had just been in Pisces, right? Mars had been in Pisces where we're trying to connect with something beyond. He goes into Aries and it's like, no, now I realize I need to fight. Now, again, and that's, cultural, personal, fighting the fight with your own health, your own weaknesses, your own opinions, rather than a bunch of opinions that you inflict against others. Question those opinions and have the courage to really introspect and question your own opinions. And how much those opinions even really make sense. How much do those opinions really even make sense? I see a lot with a lot of online conversations now, especially since the abortion thing kind of blew up now. And people's opinions often just don't really make a lot of sense. And I hope people introspect about this idea. It's a lot of moralizing going on. And again, that's my view, that when you break down the opinions of why someone would want to prohibit that, the opinions there, it's really just appeal to authority, belief. I believe this, so I think it's me believing this is justification enough to take away the autonomy and the agency of living grown women and the implications of what taking away their right to a medical procedure means. It's not just stopping this thing, it's forcing them to bear a child and then raise it with no resources. In a country, for example, where minimum wage isn't even guaranteed, they might be hand to mouth, afraid of being on the street themselves with a couple children. Maybe there's rape. There's all kinds of things involved that's not thought through when you just bypass it. By the way, that's why it's called spiritual bypassing. When you just, fade away into some moral stance that's utterly disconnected from the real world implications, then these opinions that you have maybe don't make sense. Because again, this is what Mars does. And this is Jupiter and Mars together. Jupiter has a belief about things. I believe it's wrong. I believe aborting babies is murder and an abomination. I hear you. Nobody likes the idea. It's an abhorrent idea. But this belief comes, and then the belief comes from Jupiter, and then Mars defends the belief with opinions. Mars is the as far as ideas are concerned, it's opinions. It's not actions. It's not action. I'm sorry. Mars is supposed to be actions. The actions that we take, not the opinions we have about it. Instead, we have a lot of opinions to defend our beliefs. And those opinions and beliefs are disconnected from the real world implications of what's going on. And the real world implications of things are related to Saturn, Mercury, and Venus, because those are the worldly planets, literally the ones where we now have to, okay, you want to force the woman to take care of the baby. Are you going to help her? Are you going to give her any resources? Are you going to give her any money? What are you going to do to help her? Nothing. So now the opinion is just nonsense at this point, particularly once Mercury gets involved and starts analyzing it and making you answer for your opinion, which is Mercury and Gemini. Again, Mercury and Gemini is now here saying, well, explain your beliefs now. How does your belief actually work in the real world? How does your belief and your opinion make sense? Now that we have to communicate about it, by the way, we could bring in all kinds of things. Like, for example, the religious books don't actually say that. And all this other, all of these opinions are not intellectually sound. Once Mercury gets involved, it starts saying, well, how about you question this a little bit? And why don't you sink into the heart a little bit and see what the implications are of these beliefs you have, for example. And yes, you can tell what I feel about this. Sink into the heart and see, what are you condemning this person to in the name of your beliefs? And is that actually good for culture? So and I'm talking about this very triggering event right now in context, but again, these things also are playing out in your life in many ways. For example, in my life now, it's also really getting me more disciplined and focused about other things in my life, especially sleep and erratic habits and tendencies. As a Gemini person with a lot of, with a lot of planets in Gemini, one of the hardest things for me often is stick to a routine, stay with it. So this Mars in Aries is really getting me feeling great about these, staying really disciplined about these routines, because Mars is about the actions we're taking, not the opinions we have about what others are doing. That's the downfall of Mars, is the opinions we have about what others are doing. Oh, it's so much easier for me to have an opinion about what others should be doing based on what I believe. Literally, based on what I believe, Jupiter, I have an opinion about what everybody else should be doing, or what I believe is right, and I'm ready to fight for it. Again, how much discipline and courage is in your own life? That's really what Mars is about. By the way, just one more thing. And for me, ultimately, as someone even about this abortion issue, as it relates to Mercury, what is someone losing who doesn't believe that we should have abortions? If people don't believe that abortions are that they're an abomination, there's a simple solution. Don't get one. Going further and preventing other people to do something based on your beliefs. Again, this is why we have a separation of church and state. And this is why these things are very dangerous right now. So, and again, a lot of this Venus in Taurus now, Venus in Taurus is really bringing a lot of connection to earth and beauty and love and joy, aside from all these things that are going on. I don't know if you feel it, but for me, I've been feeling really great. You see, I've been going to the beach and really connecting to nature. These are very powerful things that we could be doing now, really connecting to, supporting each other. 1 second. All right. And bringing these teachings into the earth realm. Venus is very much about devotion to something higher, finding beauty, joy, happiness in the world. And in Taurus, it's very much about in our present moment. For example, things like our diet, our food, each other. And again, this is why, on a larger scale, is sad with some of the things that have happened culturally, and particularly even like with the environment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the courts in a second when I get to the hemming. But underneath it all, again, Venus in Taurus is giving us also the awareness of the need to preserve beauty, to share the beauty with each other, to get out in nature. So these are things that are also very ripe and very active right now in your life. So we have to be careful not to get, so triggered and so despondent, and keep connecting to the, beauty and joy in life. We already talked about Mercury in Gemini. Is a time to really, he's been in Taurus, but when he goes into Gemini, we're going to be using our discrimination and really talking about these things even more. And this real potential for using our mind to really see through our conditioned mindsets, including political indoctrinations, social indoctrinations, religious indoctrination. For example, I'll just say this, and again, some people don't like when I talk about this, but the whole abortion tied to the Bible, is a total confabulation that started in the 80s. This is, whether you know it or not, especially if you're going down this road, this is a calculated political issue that was literally confabulated in the 80s. I remember it. Ronald Reagan was for abortion. Was for the first Roe v. Wade. Most of the justices were conservatives. In fact, it was a conservative edict because the state shouldn't be determining what people are doing. People have the right to these things, a constitutional right to these things, right? And in the 80s, it turned into a divisive political issue, all for politics, because they could get conservatives to think that this is a liberal thing where now it's just run amok. So even the origin of that issue, again, this is Mercury talking. Go research it. By the way, I have links on another video that I did about this, and I'll put a link here because people are going to lose their mind, because some people will, but I'm into educating about these things as well. By the way, it's also in the Bible, several places where they say how to perform an abortion. Of course, if a woman is cheated, you do this thing to abort the baby and all this stuff. Childbirth throughout history has known to have been dangerous as hell. And there have been times when you need to abort, mainly for life of the mother, other kinds of things, but even in religious context for sins that were performed or what have you. Again, this is Mercury and Gemini talking. These are facts. Maybe you don't like them, especially if you've bought into the programming of the last 40 years or so, when it was turned into a political issue to divide, social wars and all that. This is just fact. You can look it up easily. I'll have links if you don't believe me. So again, this Mercury time, aside from all of that, it's a great time to be learning and studying more and understanding more about, again, things like astrology or anything that you're interested in. Mercury and Gemini, it's actually going through quick. It's 2 weeks. It'll only be going through Gemini for 2 weeks because it was just retrograde. So after Mercury is retrograde and he starts moving direct again, he goes pretty fast. He kind of flies through. So take these 2 weeks of Mercury in Gemini from July 2nd to July, I think it's 16th or 18th or something. I did it in my recent forecast to really start understanding some of these things and looking into it intelligently and having intelligent discussions with people about it. Because I think people are operating from their highest good for the most part. They're trying to protect, at least many are trying to protect these. Nothing about abortion is pleasant. No one is pro-abortion. Yay, cut babies up or whatever it might be. No one. So again, I understand that people are operating from wanting to protect lives of the unborn and whatnot. Everyone gets it. But information and understanding things in their highest and in their truest form is really what Mercury in Gemini brings. So investigate these things. And also, as I said, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn are the planets that are down to earth, right? Literally, they're the ones where we then think things through. You got to think things through. Saturn, as you think about, okay, what are the implications of doing this? You're not preventing an abortion. You're sentencing a living woman, human being, to incubate a child against her will. And then what? Take care of it somehow? Are you going to help her take care of it? Are you going to raise it for 20 years? And by the way, even that whole idea of hijacking a woman's body, like, I mean, think this through. How humane is that? Pro-life. Are you pro-life only when it's hidden in the womb and dependent on an actual living being? How pro-life is that? You're not pro her life. So again, it falls apart. So sensibly, it's not sensible in that context. It's just a belief, basically a religious or spiritual belief. You're not preventing one moment. You're preventing an entire course. And again, it's Venus, Mercury, and Saturn that are the planets and the energies that consider those consequences and then say, well, wait a minute, let's not just. And by the way, this is not even to mention the punitive qualities, because a lot of it, when you hear people talk about it, frankly, it's punitive. Well, she shouldn't have done it in the first place. Well, again, so then it becomes punishment, and then it becomes pretty angry. And yes, if you're in this camp, look at your anger about this and see how much anger you actually are bringing towards people. If you're functioning through anger at a woman for getting pregnant or whatever it might be, you're really not coming from a clean place. You're not. If there's all this anger and punishment at her, and you're still not considering the consequences either. Okay, you're going to punish her by not letting her do that, then what? Then you're going to punish her and get mad at her because she's on welfare and has another kid or whatever. So again, this is all Mercury, Saturn stuff where you have to consider the consequences of what you're doing. This is why it's made sense. And the American Supreme Court is the only entity in any sophisticated country, any liberal democracy, any, again, sophisticated first world nation who has done this. This is not normal. In fact, this is why it's very dangerous and scary. Again, the moon in Cancer gives us a capacity to actually have deeper empathy toward all things. Again, I'm talking about this debate right now because it's very hot and urgent, and it's opened up something that is unprecedented, and we're in new territory, whether people know it or not. And so this moon in Cancer, again, allows us to sink deeper than just our emotions and our emotional triggering of a woman. And our emotional triggering around these issues. And allows us to empathize and have more empathy about things, not just be emotional. Again, because the moon is where we're often just emotionally reacted. Now we can sink into the heart more. So I want to go and look at this hemming. You can see this very interesting, unprecedented kind of sort of chain of hemming. Hemming is when one of the signs, and consequently the houses and the planets in the signs, are hemmed, either between two difficult planets or two gentle planets that facilitate ease and cooperation. You can see, for example, this is hemming. You have two difficult planets. Now it's actually three. Saturn, Mars, and Rahu are here hemming Jupiter in Pisces, which means Saturn is a difficult planet before Jupiter, and Mars and Rahu are difficult planets after Jupiter. So Jupiter right now is hemmed between these two malefic planets. Back when those court decisions were made last week and earlier this week about the environment, Jupiter and Mars were both there. So Mars was also, and at that time, Jupiter and Mars were hemmed between Saturn and Rahu. So this sign of Pisces has been hemmed for, since Saturn poked his head into Aquarius, which was a few weeks ago. One second. And This hemming of Jupiter shows this environment of contentiousness and control and sort of hypnotic confusion, with Rahu after Jupiter and Saturn before. You can definitely see Saturn before the Jupiter. Let's use like the court as an example. Control, restriction, prohibition, taking things away. They took away New York's gun rights, a gun prohibition. They took away the prohibition. They took away the woman's right, and they took away the EPA's power, the Environmental Protection Agency's power to enforce their carbon limitations and things like that yesterday. 3 gigantic pillars of, it's not American liberals, it's liberal democracy around the world. No other country has all these guns. No other country restricts abortions. And no other country says, sure, pollute like crazy. This is what the court is doing. They're unhinged at this point. They are not following the will of the people or even the will of liberal democracies around the world, European democracies, or even Asian, even authoritarian countries that want to take care of their people, that haven't done these kinds of things. Don't allow guns, abortion, all this other stuff. So the court, you can definitely see this hemming on Jupiter and what Jupiter represents, which are the courts, as I said. Now we see Jupiter and Venus. Jupiter is a positive, bringing wisdom, intelligence, and Venus brings grace, and it brings patience, kindness, thoughtfulness, manners, beauty. Is hemming Mars, Rahu in Aries. So this thing I was just talking about, this fighting spirit is being helped and facilitated by good teachings and connecting to other people, having compassion for other people, both other people's perspective on both sides. So this means there's a great possibility now for those of you who are, let's say, you call yourself pro-life, okay, which is anti-abortion, it's anti-choice. You're saying I'm pro-life, and I want to make sure that my version of pro-life is anti-choice to everyone else. I want my pro-life stance to prevent others from doing the thing that I have the right to not do. I want them to not have the right to do it, okay? Now is a possibility for people who are in that camp to consider things more and really consider the implications and really connect with something authentically higher. Again, not just some sort of trigger. And really connect to the humanity. And again, the higher thing would be Jupiter and the humanity of the other person and the courtesy and the respect to say, would I want people to be able to, like the example I used, would I want my rights to eat meat taken away because these people don't eat meat and they think it's right for the world? What if all of a sudden the court said, okay, meat eating is banned? Would I like that? I like to eat meat. It's part of a healthy diet and Would I want my rights taken away? These people that don't want to eat meat, don't eat it. Nobody's forcing you to eat it. So don't force me to not eat it. So again, maybe we could, this idea of of Venus and Taurus after this Mars Rahu is showing an environment where people who are fired up about one side of the issue can calm down and say, you know what? I understand the implications of this. It's my beliefs about something has real world implications, and I wouldn't like that. Because people who are against meat eating could definitely make a case for why we shouldn't have it anymore. Torturing all these animals, destroying the environment, incredibly unsanitary, all kinds of stuff. And on the other side, the side I just said before, those of us who are pro-life and who think that women should have access to safe medical procedures can also have more compassion and say, look, a lot of the people who feel this way, these aren't political, terrible people. They authentically think, and like we all think, that it's abhorrent. It's a horrible thing, and it is. They're not trying to, maybe they're just not thinking this through. Maybe they're just not, really dialed into what's going on. So, okay, I have compassion for that. I don't need to come out guns blazing, calling them all lunatics. I can have compassion for that. So this environment can be very healthy. I could put more of that into practice too, because I've been pretty harsh. So I can go back and also be more compassionate about that. And at least on what we have here. Yeah, and so this sign of, we don't have the hemming here because it's also mixed with this one, but the hemming, well, what I'm saying is that when you have a benefic animalific mixed, then it doesn't hem, because it has to be either all benefics or all malefics. So we have this here, this hemming where Jupiter and Venus are hemming Aries, and where Saturn and Mars Rahu are hemming Jupiter. And that's the hemming that we have now. So again, it's a very powerful concept. It's actually called Papa Kartari and Shubha Kartari. Papa means, it literally means sinful, but it's a difficult hemming. And then Shubha, which means auspicious, is auspicious hemming. And so this is why we see this sinful, literally Papa means, that's actually the word for sin. Sinful or evil. Evil would be another word for it. Hemming on Jupiter and what it represents, like justice, righteousness, and auspicious hemming on Mars Rahu, which means that our battles and our fights have a potential for cooperation in them. And, I will tell you in general, my view about these things isn't to be angry and upset with people about it. And I was just thinking, I think, I do these things live and in real time. And I was just thinking, when I can maybe be more gracious when people argue, and I was thinking, I don't start out any conversation like that. Like when people show up and will say things about my views on this. And I start out respectful. When people start to then bring out this harsh criticism, judgment, not just of me, but of the women doing this, they should be punished, or it's a punishment, or it's a sin, or I don't know, all these kinds of things. Then I speak very bluntly and say, this is just religious brainwashing and these other kinds of things. And maybe I shouldn't say those things, even though, frankly, I think it's true, because they're saying it's true. They're literally quoting the Bible, and they're quoting these things and saying that I'm, and I hear their misguided words, the things that aren't factual, and they're not factual. And I push back at it. And I push back at it with that kind of, it's honesty, but it's also quite harsh. It's hard not to be harsh when I'm defending those who aren't speaking up, or those who aren't, which are the women and the culture and the society that is being, I would say, attacked and assaulted. And I could do better with that. It's hard, though, and it is hard. And there's a thing called righteous anger, and it's not indiscriminate. And it's not something that we just get to decide, oh, it's my righteous anger, because people don't use righteous anger. And I'm not saying mine is. I'm saying here, and even in real time, I could probably do a little better with it, particularly in those moments where people show up. And again, it's a lot of personal insult at me and ridicule of those who are in a desperate situation and a desperate need and not considering the implications. But the times when righteous anger is not just called, not just accepted, but called for, is in times when Dharma is being violated. I'll give you an example of righteous anger is Hanuman and his defense of Dharma and of the righteous, of what they think is the righteous path or the righteous course. And when you see Dharma being violated, like, to me, it's a violation of Dharma to encroach upon the autonomy of another being. And I would say, in fairness to those others, to them, it's a violation of Dharma. The abortion is the violation of Dharma. I get it. I do get it. And especially, these are things happening online. Online, we can get a little heated. Again, I'm confessing, I definitely can and do at times. In person, it probably wouldn't play out that way because, first of all, they wouldn't walk up and say that stuff to my face. I doubt it. And if they did, I don't know if I would even respond at all. And I respond like I'm just saying, not just from my point of view, but maybe for others watching, this could be helpful. But I'm not just responding to the individual, I'm responding to people reading it. Because when you have a platform and 45,000 people reading comments and watching videos and what have you, I'm speaking so that others can see me answer the question and answer the objection, because maybe it helps. I don't know if it helps. I don't know if any of it helps. So this is why I'll often get into an argument with someone online, because sometimes people are like, why do you spend your time arguing with people online? It's all this, it's all that. I don't mind if people discuss things, especially if they want to bring issues, even if they bring them harshly. I will delete comments when people just show up and call me a name. The heck with that. But if people want to actually engage and say, you're so misguided because, and then they start saying things, the Vedic texts say this, or this says that, and this says that, and you're a blah, 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 and it's mixed with all these insults. I try to not get so much into the insult, but I will at some point if it turns out that the person, maybe not the personal insult, but that your brainwashing is this, or you believe this thing and you haven't investigated it. I'm saying these things because maybe we can all do better. I'll start with myself and introspect about that. But these are big, important issues right now. And the scary thing that's happening right now, and again, with this court, especially with these court decisions, which the whole world, by the way, is alarmed now. The whole world is taken back, is reeling now, going, my God, what is happening in America? They don't have a functioning democracy. These courts are overturning the will of the people. They're taking away basic rights. They're codifying gun rights. Like, they don't want to codify Roe v. Wade, a woman's right to a medical procedure in the Constitution, but they want to say that everyone has a constitutional right to conceal carry a firearm. And they're willing to overturn a state law to do that. States' rights go out the window when it comes to guns, but when it comes to a right to a legal medical procedure, I'll leave it up to the states. And they did that knowing full well that 13 or 14 states had trigger laws that as soon as they handed that down, abortion was going to be illegal in all these states. They knew that. It's not like, oh, didn't see that one. No, they knew it. As soon as they overturned it, it's illegal in many states. They knew it. So this is not just one issue. It's a court that now they're trying to overturn it. They're trying to make it federal law. They're trying to overturn, not even make it states' rights. They're trying to outlaw it. So these are big issues, and they're worth defending if you want the world that you're going to live in. By the way, let me say, I'm a man. This could not affect me. So I'm in there in the fight. And so a lot of these things don't affect me, but they affect the world I live in. And so these are things that we all have to be looking at, or not. Maybe you choose to not look at it. That's okay too. We can all have a choice. We all can. But this trail of planets that we have right now, all in their signs. This is why so much is so lit up and so alive right now. Saturn, again, in Aquarius, we're really paying attention to these themes. Look at how much we're so much paying attention to these themes right now. We're so much paying attention to our cultural bond and contract we have with each other. Jupiter in Pisces, our legal system, what should be legal, what should not? What are we willing to fight for? Mars and Aries, are you ready to fight for it? What is the earth we want to preserve, and how do we maintain our daily sanity and connection to joy, beauty, happiness as a result? Mercury in Gemini, how much does our teachings and the things we say make sense? Do they really make sense? If not, why are we still defending them? The moon in Cancer, connecting to the heart. I'm going to end on this. Lisa Flenka said, Lord knows we need male allies right now. I'm going to speak to this right now. You're right. You do need male allies. And as an ally, I'm happy to do that because that's my nature. What also needs to happen is women need to appreciate it as well. I'm not saying you need to do anything necessarily to appreciate it, but I'm telling you how it gets a little bit old sometimes to go on women's social media who are friends of mine or whatever, and they're men bashing over this kind of stuff. I think women could start calling out women too a little bit. You don't have to just turn it into, we need male allies right now. How about when you do see male allies, help them out a little bit? Because I'll post something, even in these comments. There are people who are going to come at me. I'll say something and nobody will help me. My female friends who I'm sticking up for, I don't see them helping me. Really. I see a lot of calling out of how men, the patriarchy, most of the men who are reading the posts of the women who I'm friends with on social media, most of those men are allies for them. And yet, Lisa, I'm glad that you did speak. Look, here we go. But all I'm saying is that appreciate it, literally, because men get called out for this, and there are a lot of men on your side, but a lot of reason why men don't speak up is because we get some grief for it at times. What Trudy said, it's not a men-women, it's not. How about instead of calling out men in general, how about calling out, Republicans or right-wingers or women who support it? A lot of women support it. You can call that out. How about, again, because it feels like a cheap shot. It does feel like a cheap shot at this point. It's not all men. There are a lot of men who are on your side. Men it isn't even the demographic. Where the demographic cuts is you can see it cut along political lines. So if you want to call out the real delineating factor, which is Republicans or right-wingers or Christians. Go ahead, call it out. Instead of taking a cheap shot just at men, a lot of men it's not men. Most men who are, I guess, if you want to use politics, Democrats or liberals or whatever, agree with you. And they're here wanting to defend you. So it's men isn't the demographic. It's not the men who are your enemy. That's not the demographic. And by the way, like I say, most of the people that are going to even disagree with me saying this, most of them are going to be women, frankly. It's usually not men. It's usually women who wind up saying this stuff. So again, and as Trudy said, it's not a man-woman issue. So that's just my view. If you see a man willing to help and you see him in there in the fight, help him too. And you don't need to thank me, but you don't need to always be saying men this, men that. It's not men. There are a lot of men who are on your side. Most of the men you probably know are there also trying to help. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. And I wasn't going to say that, but I did anyway, because I think it's also important. And because it's true. We need to, in keeping with what I've been saying, with having proper communication and discrimination and finding allies and fighting the good fight, there are many who are on your side. So hopefully this was helpful. And aside from the, perhaps triggering content, the next few days, especially, and these planets are going to be arranged like this for quite a while. Again, we're going to have for at least a few weeks before Venus goes into Gemini, at least, week to 10 days to 2 weeks or so. We're going to have Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, all in their own signs. So it's a great time to be making some enormous progress on these things over the next couple weeks. And as I said before, let me go back here, that I dropped this link in here again for the for these classes. Again, if you want to understand how this works in a very deep way, again, yoga, Ayurveda, Vedic astrology, these principles are really profound. This is how consciousness and spirit descends into form, so that you can really understand the nature of your karma and the nature of all of your actions and activities. You can also understand them intellectually, psychologically, and even on the quantum level with this course, and then get a deeper dive into the nakshatras and other spiritual aspects of Vedic astrology that way. So anyway, I hope you're well. And again, please share this with others, and we'll be in touch.